All right, so this is ride 6 on Drifter. Um, I guess I'm officially doing this voiceover thing. This is strongly requested by my husband, Benjamin, because he knows nothing about horses and he says it's very boring to watch me ride without knowing what I'm doing. But he somehow finds it entertaining to hear me talk about it. So, I'm mainly doing this for him, but also anybody else that might find it entertaining or educational. So, ride 6, we are in the outdoor arena, as you can see, which is very exciting. This is our first time riding outside of the round pen, which, I'm going to be totally honest, I was taking a bit of a risk. I was taking more risk than I needed to because what I should have done was what I normally do, which is I free lunge in the round pen just to get their wiggles out, and it kind of gives me like a gauge of how much energy they have and how much energy I'm going to have to burn off before they are really like focusing on me. So I usually free lunge first. They usually get like a buck or two out of them. And then I might put the halter on and lunge them on the halter, or I might just do some groundwork before I get on. I did none of that. Well, I did lunge with the halter on, but I didn't free lunge, which lunging with the halter is good, but they usually don't get as many of their wiggles out. They're just more constrained. And I also don't like to be attached to them when they're bucking and getting their wiggles out. So anyway, I did lunge with the halter, but that was it before I hopped on, which honestly was not the wisest move, but I did it because I was just excited to ride in the outdoor arena, but also I had ridden the day prior, so I kind of knew he was gonna be pretty calm. I wasn't super worried that he was gonna have a bunch of wiggles to get out, but it was definitely a risk. It's definitely not something I advise, and the most prudent thing to do would have been to free lunge him in the round pen ahead of time. Actually, the most prudent would have been to free lunge him in the round pen, tack him up, and then ride in the round pen, and then end the ride here in the outdoor arena. And I normally do the safest thing possible just to set myself up for success. So, I don't know. I can't tell you why I made a poor choice here, but spoiler alert, it ended up being fine. So I guess it was fine, but the smartest thing to do and the safest thing to do would have been to be in the round pen first to start out. So introducing him to the outdoor arena, I am just walking around, letting him explore it, keeping it really calm and casual. I did walk him around on foot first, so it's not like this is the very first time he's seen the arena. I mean, that would be very irresponsible of me if I had not at least walked him around on foot. So I walked him around in the halter. I don't know if I did both directions, but I at least did one direction before getting on. And now I'm just letting him walk around, and I'm not being super picky if he stops to smell things at this point. So I'm not like focusing on that cruise control training bit that I talked about before, where like I'm not as concerned about him staying in the walk at this point. Now, I do want him to still follow the rail, so he went way into the inside there, and I'm just gently bringing him back to the rail. But if he wants to stop and smell a cone, that's fine. If he wants to stop and sniff something that looks interesting to him, I'm going to let him do that, because I'd rather he stop and sniff it now and get used to it than, not let him get used to something and then we're going around at a trot and he like spooks at it. So he's getting like a little bit more, I'm being a little bit more lenient than I normally am. And you can see already that, well, I guess I had to steer him around that mat. But you can tell we're kind of going all over the place because this is a much bigger area, and he, again, is still working on his steering. So I've gotten savvier with my video editing, and I have put this on double speed because we're just walking around the arena some more, getting used to everything, and it actually is quite boring to just watch that because it's quite a big arena. But shortly we'll come around this corner. I think he's stopped, and I eventually ask him to keep walking. When we come around this corner, oh, he wants to come off there, I just direct him back. He does the same thing after this corner, so he wants to come in. Well, first I let him sniff like a water spigot, because I don't want him to spook at it later, like I already talked about. So he just comes in off the rail, and I just gently, not gracefully, but gently direct him back. And then right about here, I've put it back to regular speed because I'm gonna ask him for an emergency stop. You can see I like really exaggerate it. So my heels are way down, my legs are way out. They look kind of silly, but I'm just exaggerating that stop. He's stopped nicely, and then I ask him to walk off. He did do a bit of a forehand turn, which is fine. I've sped this up again because we're just walking the other direction, getting used to the arena the other direction. And it is important to do both directions because for whatever reason, things look different to the horses going different directions. At least that's what I've learned with my other horses. Maybe not with Drifter, but certainly that's been true for the other horses I've worked with. So just walking around, I noticed he was like a little bit tender on his front feet over there on that far side. I'm probably gonna need to put shoes on him, but it doesn't seem to be like a major thing, so I kept riding. I think the ground's just harder over there. So I think at this point I start doing some steering, which I was actually quite happy with how he did, at least by the end of our ride. See how he's walking pretty straight across the arena there, which I wasn't really expecting him to do right away, because it's a much bigger area, and he could go any which direction, but he went straight across, which is exactly what I wanted him to do. And I'm just doing the same cues I did in the round pen, kind of exaggerating where my weight is placed. I don't know if I explained this before, but to ask for the turn, I shift my weight first, I look where I'm going, I kind of open up my inside rein, and then bump with my outside leg. And I try to use more leg than rein if I can. And I think I asked him to do it again. Yeah, so you can see I kind of shifted my weight, opened my inside rein, bumped with my outside leg. And he's walking across nicely. I think he just decided to stop here, like he decides to do often. Again, I just gently correct. I don't really see a point in getting excited or frustrated or more aggressive about that correction at this point. And I think we're going to come around and turn again whenever we come back into the frame. We're actually going to do a trot. So I was a bit nervous, not nervous, but like this is where things could go haywire, asking for a trot in such a big area, because in the round pen, you know, they're more constrained. Even if they freak out at something, they'll just be whipping around a smaller space. But here, if he decides to get excited, he honestly can go anywhere with me. And so it's always a little bit nerve-wracking trotting for the first time. And in fact, I did not ask for the lope, so something did go wrong here. And not only did he pick up the lope, but he picked up the wrong lead, which honestly I don't care about at this point. There's a number of things I could have done in this situation. So I just wanted him to trot. I wanted him to keep trotting around the arena and get comfortable at that, but he got a little excited and decided to lope. There's a few ways I could have handled that. I could have, you know, the first way I was taught, like way back in the day, was that if a horse goes faster than you want it to, slow it down, like pull him into a tight forehand turn, make him spin around, and then ask again for the gait that you wanted. And that's not wrong. I wouldn't fault anybody for doing that at this point. I chose not to do that here because my main goal was just to have this experience in the outdoor arena be as least stressful as possible. So I'm going to stop the video before he does the next thing I want to talk about. But as I said, I just wanted this to be as low stress as possible. And so I felt like spinning him around in a tight forehand turn would have only kind of gotten him more excited and made it more stressful. And not only do I want the arena to be a low stress environment, but I also want loping to be a low stress environment or a low stress gait at this point. So I chose not to correct that, and instead I just made, you know, the wrong thing to do, which was break into the canter. That's in and of itself more work for him. So breaking into the canter or the lope, he already made it harder on himself, and I was going to let him figure out that he didn't have to make it harder and that he could just come back down to the trot and that we could just be comfortable at the trot. So I could have corrected it. I didn't. Instead, I just let him kind of ride it out and figure it out that it was easier to be at the trot. The third option, which I did consider in the moment, the third option would have been to say, well, okay, you want to lope, let's lope, and not let him come back down to the trot until I asked him to, which is a strategy I like in general. But again, it's not really in the spirit of keeping this as low stress. So what I'm saying is on a different day, in a different situation, I could have done different things in this scenario and they would have been correct and reasonable. I chose to basically not react to him loping, which I also felt like for this ride in this moment was the correct choice for us. Okay, now I use a little strategy here. I feel like he's gonna lope again, or he wants to lope again right at this corner. So I do a little pivot and turn him around in a circle just to kind of like slow down his energy, get him like focused on me and not thinking about loping. So at this point, I just am having him trot around. I've sped it up because we just are doing a lot of trotting. And I'm happy about this because he doesn't lope again, and he gets a little bit more comfortable at the trot, which is nice. A lot of trotting. But to get comfortable at a gait, you just gotta do a lot of it. I could have done 20 more minutes of trotting, but his feet were a little tender, so I didn't push it. All right, at some point we're gonna do some steering. Okay, so I've asked him to come across the center again, which I'm happy that he, again, went straight across at the trot. And then I believe I'm going to ask him to do it again, coming from the other side. I think he broke gait there, so again, letting him make that mistake, and then just asking for the gait that I want. All right, so you saw me open up my inside rein. Just ask him to go across. I was actually quite impressed at how well he did this. It tells me that even though our round pen work doesn't always feel perfect, our round pen steering, that, you know, it must have worked because he's able to translate that to the arena. Okay, so I cut a lot of walking out. We were just cooling down, walking around the arena. This is the very end of our ride, and I'm asking him to back for the very first time. So we've practiced this. Oh, I think I just asked him to stop, but I'm going to ask him to back a step or two. And I'm not going to ask for much because I just want him to get used to it. So I'm just putting pressure on the Bozal, both reins equally. He's turning his head because he's like, I don't know what you want. But eventually he takes a step back. There you go. And then I release. And then I reward him. So the first time you introduce something new, the release and reward is probably the most important part after they do the thing you want. So I asked for it again and he steps back, but then the video cuts out. So you're not gonna see the release, but that's the end of ride 6.